So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday, I introduced the concept of operational suitability data, and then at the time, I mentioned that as a mandatory, the OSD shall provide operator difference requirement tables. So, since the early beginning of the story, the Airbus family is sharing a consistent man-machine interface across type. We have common and intuitive design philosophy, same cockpit layout, same fly-by-wire controls, same efficient ECAM. We have as well common and intuitive pilot aircraft interfaces, similar handlings, similar normal and abnormal procedures. Those advantages, in fact, allow demonstration of credits for training and for operation. ODR tables are the means to demonstrate those credits. So I will first start with the purpose of the ODR, then I will emphasize the notion of difference level, then I will show you some extract from ODR tables for you to understand what is the content. So the definition is this one. An ODR, an operator difference requirements, ODR table, is a comprehensive description of differences between various aircraft flown by an operator. This definition comes from the regulation, the one I showed you yesterday. On the European side, this is the certification specification flight crew data, and with the equivalent on the American side, the advisory circular 120-53 Bravo. And once again, we have identical definitions and criteria for this concept of ODR table, and we have a similar process for both. So the principle is this one. Basically, this is a comparison between two aircraft or two variants of systems and layouts, abnormal and emergency procedures. This provides what we call the ODR system, and this is mainly a paper analysis, if I may say, done by specialists, engineers, pilots. In addition, we have aircraft handling comparison. Combined with abnormal and emergency procedures, it provides the ODR maneuver parts. It is done either on real aircraft or in a simulator, and both systems and maneuvers at the end are cross-checked together to ensure that the results are consistent. From that, we can identify the differences, we can qualify the difference level, and I will come back on that after, and we can evaluate the associated training aids or training devices to be used for the training, with the objective at the end, that is to be able to propose difference training and cross-crew qualification. So, in fact, the purpose is for Airbus as a manufacturer, an ODR is a means of compliance to determine the aircraft type rating. This is part of the operational suitability evaluation, and this is mandatory at the level of the OSD on the European side. This is recommended by the FAA for the DFSB. This is also a means to define the content of difference training and cross-crew qualification. It is, as I mentioned just before, validated by tests, and those tests are defined in the regulation, the EASA and the FAA ones. And this is an iterative process for the continued validity. This is exactly in line with what I explained yesterday. We have to keep up to date all the data whenever there is a design change, whenever there is an in-service event, or whenever we have to demonstrate a difference training that is not yet demonstrated. For you, operators and training organization, first of all, you have to customize the ODR table to your operations, to your training needs. Why? Because the ODR table shall reflect your fleet. Then, when you have done that, this is for you support for the development of your different training programs. Of course, it has to be done according to your proper training policy. And in fact, ODR table, we will see just after, they are applicable for both initial and recurrent trainings. So let me explain you the concept of difference level. The principle is this one. In fact, we determine the level of training, checking, or currency. This is to satisfy the different training requirements or the type rating requirements. With this concept, with this principle, we can also assess any design modification. What does it mean? It means if tomorrow in your airline you introduce, for instance, the APFD TCAS function with the corresponding ODR table, you will be able to say, okay, when I introduce this function, I need this training for my pilots. So, in the regulation, we have 5 difference levels from A to E. A corresponds to self-instruction. This is, for instance, the operating manual. And level E corresponds to a significant full task training. This is commonly the full flight simulator. It could be, of course, the aircraft. Just to give you an idea of what are the corresponding devices for the A350, for the level E, we consider that the FCOM is an acceptable mean for self-instruction. For the level B, headed instruction, we use the System Knowledge Module, SKM. Those two ones, level A and B, are for familiarization training. For the level C, we rely on the ACE system, Airbus cockpit experience. For the level D, we use the flight training device level 2, EASA. Level C and D are for difference training. And for the level E, basically, this is the full flight simulator that we use for any new type rating. Now, let's see what is the content of an ODR table. So basically, we have some explanation at the beginning of any ODR table. We recall the definitions, the regulation requirements, the difference level, the way the table is presented, and the applicability. And then after, we have the details. And generally, it is divided in 3 parts, the ODR general and design chapter, the ODR system I mentioned before, and the ODR maneuver parts. So, if we look at an example of ODR system, what can we see? What can we have? First of all, we have the based aircraft. Then we have the candidate aircraft. Remember, the principle is to make a comparison between 2 aircraft or 2 variants. And as you can see, they are identified with dedicated serial numbers. They are real aircraft. Then we have the system itself. Here, for instance, autoflight. The description of the identified differences with the novelties. Here, for instance, new MFD, etc., etc. Then we have the impact, the result of the impact assessment on flight characteristics and on procedures. Here, for instance, it says there is no impact on flight characteristics, but there is an impact on procedure, most probably because there is behind a change in the procedure between the A320 and the A380 in this case. And as well, we have the result of the analysis for the difference levels for training, initial and recurrent, checking, initial and recurrent, and currency. Here, for instance, we have level C for training and checking. It is valid for both initial training and recurrent training. And for the currency, it says level B over a period of 3 years. If we look at the maneuver description, in fact, the layout is exactly the same, and you will use it as is. How to use the difference level, and it is key for you to understand that. In fact, the level given in the Airbus ODR is the minimum demonstrated by us at the time of the certification exercise. Here, for instance, we have a level C for the training. You, operators, training organization, at your level, you may decide to be more conservative because of your training policy, because of your operations, because of any other reason. And you can say, okay, for my pilot, for my population, for this item, I would like to train this item with a level E, meaning a full flight simulator. This is part of the customization you have to do with ODR table. Where we are today, we have more than 30 ODR tables already published, 14 combinations through 5 aircraft types and 15 models. It works. Where to find the ODR difference requirements table? Like yesterday for operational suitability data, they are all available on Airbus World in the content library, airworthiness and certification, operational suitability, EASA certification. And I mentioned as an example the APFDT CAS before. We can see here that we have the one for the A320. Conclusion, ODR are mandatory parts of the operational suitability data for the EASA. They are a mean of compliance to determine the aircraft type rating. They are used to demonstrate credits for difference training and cross-crew qualification. They are also there to support credits for single and mixed fleet flying operation, and I will come back on that in the next presentation. And they are for you, and you have to customize those ODR tables for your operation and your training. Thank you.
One question.
Oh, we have maybe one question.
Yep. So we have a question for you, Vincent. Stand by.
Okay.
The question from Indigo, from Rajiv. What is the significance of the ODR within the same type rating, for example, within the 320 family, NEO versus CO? Airbus recommendations?
In fact, this is the principle. The OSD says whenever there is a new variant of a type, you have to analyze the differences. So this is what we have done with the NEO, and this is why we have an ODR table between the CO and the NEO. And it says the result, as far as I remember, is a level B, so there is almost no difference. So we can go just a familiarization training, and this is just a briefing covering the difference that are at level B. Is that satisfy you?
If anybody wants to talk about that more, we have both Regine Vadreau in the room and also Vincent will be happy to continue discussing that subject. But I know that does raise some questions from people from time to time. I think, unless another question has just come through.
Maybe I can do the next presentation, Dave?
Yes, okay.
It should answer to questions.
It will do, yeah. And that's it for direct questions for you at this stage. Thank you, Vincent.
And so what?
So what?
Okay, thanks. So, following this explanation of the ODR tables, now let's see how you, at your level, operators, training organization, you can take credits of the fleet commonality for training and for operations. So, to illustrate, in the first purpose, I will show you some example and some figures. Then I will explain, I will take different use cases to explain the principle. I will give you some benefits in terms of training and operation, and then at the end we will get a testimonial from our friends from Lufthansa. So the Airbus family concept, as I said, this is a high level of commonality to raise the overall level of safety, to optimize the training with cross-crew qualification and common type rating, and to allow safe single and or mixed fleet flying operation. This is not a dream, this is a reality. And I have, on behalf of Airbus, to say thanks to the pioneer, Lufthansa. You were the very first operator flying mixed fleet between the A320 and the A340. It was in 1994, followed 1 year after by Cathay Pacific, thanks to you as well. You were the first one between the A330 and the A340. And where we are today, cross-crew qualification and common type rating, we have more than 60 operators around the world going for cross-crew qualification and common type rating. That's a great success. And in terms of single fleet flying and mixed fleet flying, we have more than 36 operators around the world. And again, I have to say thank you to Finnair. You are the first one doing single fleet flying between A330 and A350. Thanks to all of you for those figures. How to achieve this status? So you have understood, we take the credits from the ODR table. Again, thanks to the commonality, I will not detail again. The benefits are for training and for operations. ODR table is for you, is for us. This is a powerful mean to support such demonstration and such operation. It is key to understand how it works. It is key to customize ODR table at your level, and it is key to refer to that. As a reminder, the difference levels are for level A and B, as I explained, for familiarization training, FCOM and SKM. Level C and D for difference training, and level E for type rating. So, having recalled that, let's see now some use cases and some definition to start. In fact, we have to separate the licensing training and the operations. For the licensing training, we can speak about same type rating. Same type rating, this is when we have a same type certificate and we have a single license endorsement between two variants. We can speak about common type rating. A common type rating is a single license endorsement for aircraft having separate type certificates. This is the case for the Airbus 350 and the Airbus 330. In this case, with a single license endorsement, we can speak about single fleet flying operations. One pool of pilots is flying related aircraft under a single license endorsement. In other cases, we will speak about, on the training side, we'll speak about cross-crew qualification. A cross-crew qualification is a shortened instead of a full transition training, taking the benefits of the commonalities, and in this case, on the operation side, we have to speak about mixed fleet flying operations. But again, we have one pool of pilots flying different aircrafts. So, 3 licensing training use cases to understand. The first one will be between the A320 and the A320-2021 for a same type rating. The second one is between the A320 and the A330, cross-crew qualification. And the third one will be between the A330 and the A350 for common type rating. Case number 1, from the A320 to the A321. When we run the full process, we are able at the end to demonstrate that the difference are no more than a level B. Level B means familiarization training. And as we have the same type certificates between the A320 and the A321, we can apply for a same type rating. In this case, we're going to have 1 entry on the license, A320. Level B means familiarization training, for instance, system knowledge module as a media for the training. Case number 2, from the A320 to the A330. Once again, we run the full process, and there we demonstrate that we need a level E to cover all the differences, meaning that we have to go for a transition training, thanks to the commonality, and we have to apply for a new type rating. New type rating, it means on the license 2 entries, one for the based aircraft, the A320, and one more for the new one, the A330. New type rating, level E, means that at a time we have to use a full flight simulator for the training. Case number 3, from the A330 to the A350. Here, once again, we run the process, and we are able to say, okay, the difference are no more than a level D, meaning difference training, that we have 2 separate type certificates, so we can apply, in this case, for a common type rating. On the license, we have a single license endorsement, A330/350, and difference training level D, we can rely on a flight training device level 2 at EASA level. Okay? As a result, for your operation, with those demonstrations, what can you do with your pilots? You can consider single fleet flying between the A320 and the A321. You can as well consider single fleet flying operation between the A330 and the A350. You can consider mixed fleet flying between the A320 and its variants and the A330. And as a result, you have mixed fleet flying between the A320 and its variants and the A350. That's the full picture we have today. In terms of benefits for you, benefits for training, first of all, and for initial training. The focus can be given on the real training needs, thanks to the fleet commonality. No need to repeat things that are obvious. What does it mean? It means that less time behind the computer and more time in flight for the pilots, and reduce initial training costs for the company. In terms of trainings, as well, benefits for recurrent training and prof checks. What does it mean? It means that thanks to the commonalities, you can combine recurrent training and prof checks, and by the way, you can optimize the use of training devices. Here we have an example between 2 aircraft, A and B. Every 6 months, you swap. One is used for the recurrent, the other one is used for the prof check. Again, for the pilots, more time in flight, and for the costs, reduce recurrent training costs. Benefits for operations, single and or mixed fleet flying operations. For your airline, one pool of pilots flying related aircraft, separate single or separate license endorsements, reduce initial operating experience, or LIFUS, that's the same thing, and credits for recent experience and currency, I mean number of takeoff and landings required within a period of 3 months. The benefits, greater rostering flexibility for your team and higher motivation for the pilots. Once again, the picture is this one. We have today 14 combinations already approved. Conclusion: single fleet flying, mixed fleet flying. Thanks to the commonality, skills and experience accumulated on one type can be carried over another. benefits for training and operations, higher motivation for the pilots, which is good, and as I told you yesterday, all the demonstrated credits are part of the operational suitability data report. This is part of the mandatory data. So if you wish to look at the results, you have to read the report published on Airbus People. So right now it is time for the testimonial from Lufthansa. Welcome, Jörg. Before, I will just mention this article in the latest Fast e-magazine, just published last week. You have this article celebrating the 25 years about the fleet commonality.